Well now, hold on there, partner. Before I get into telling you this here tale, let me ask you something. You ever heard of a train robbery so wild, so damn explosive, that they felt the blast clear across 3 counties, where 6 men walked away richer than cattle barons, and the U.S. Army never got back a single gold coin? Stick around, friend. What I'm about to tell will make them dime novels look like Sunday school stories. Oh, and before I forget, if you're enjoying this old coot's rambling, go ahead and hit that like button down there. And subscribe, would you? Got more stories than a cemetery's got bones. And if you got a particular tale you want told, some outlaw, some shootout, some piece of history that needs remembering, leave it in them comments below. We'll tell your story next time around. Now then, let me take you back. Blood, Gold, and Dynamite, a tale of the Copper Ridge Train Robbery. Part 1, The Devil's Congregation. Late summer, 1892, Arizona Territory. The devil himself couldn't have cooked up a meaner stretch of country than that Copper Ridge line running between Fort Huachuca and Tucson. 40 miles of sun-baked hell, rattlesnake country, where the mesquite grew twisted as a liar's promise, and the heat would cook a man's brains right inside his skull. I was working as a telegraph operator back in them days, stationed in a nothing little whistle stop called Salvation. Ain't that a laugh? Weren't no salvation to be found within 100 miles, just scorpions and regret. It was on a Tuesday, I remember, because that's when the payroll train ran, when I first laid eyes on the man they called Virgil Cade. Now, I'd heard the name before. Every man west of the Mississippi had. Virgil Cade was what you might call a professional outlaw. Not like these wild young bucks that shoot up a town for the hell of it. No, sir. Cade was calculated, methodical. They said he'd been a major in the Confederate Army, one of Quantrill's boys, and after the war got sour, he just never stopped fighting. He walked in my telegraph office that Tuesday morning, dressed like a cattleman, dusty trail coat, respectable hat, boots that had seen some miles but wasn't worn to nothing, had a face like carved oak, them gray eyes that looked right through you to whatever you was hiding in your back pocket. "Telegraph to Tucson," he said, voice smooth as aged whiskey. I nodded, got my key ready. "What's the message, mister?" "Tell Marshal Hendricks that his wife's sister done arrived safe from St. Louis. Signed, Robert Morrison." Simple enough. I tapped it out, took his coins. He thanked me kindly and walked out. Didn't think nothing of it, but that was Cade's genius, you see. Weren't till 3 days later I learned there wasn't no Marshal Hendricks. That telegram, that was Cade's way of testing the lines, making sure his message would get through when he needed it to. Always thinking 3 moves ahead, like a chess player. The payroll train was scheduled to run that Friday, $20,000 in gold coin, payment for the cavalry boys stationed at Fort Huachuca. The Army ran that train twice a month, regular as clockwork, and Virgil Cade had been watching that clock for 6 months, studying every tick and tock. His gang assembled quiet-like over the course of that week. They didn't all arrive together, that'd drawn eyes. No, they drifted in one at a time, like dust settling. First came the McCready brothers, Tom and James, Irish boys, mean as starved dogs, with hands quick as rattlesnake strikes. They'd robbed stages from here to El Paso, killed a sheriff in New Mexico territory, and wore them crimes like badges of honor. Then there was Charlie Left Hand Sutton. Got his name 'cause his right hand was missing 3 fingers from a dynamite accident back in the silver mines. But don't let that fool you. Charlie could shoot straighter with his left than most men could with both. He was Cade's explosives man. If it needed blown up, Charlie was your artist. Next came a half Apache tracker named Standing Wolf. Quiet feller, never said more'n 5 words together, but he could read trail sign like you and me read a newspaper, and he knew every canyon, every dry wash, every bolt hole in that territory. He was Cade's insurance policy, their way out when things went sideways. And finally, there was a surprise addition that nobody saw coming. A woman. Now, don't get your back up. I know what you're thinking. Women didn't run with outlaw gangs, but this one did, and she had good reason. Her name was Sarah Colton, though she went by Red on account of her copper-colored hair that she kept stuffed up under a man's hat. Her daddy'd been a rancher over near Tombstone, till a railroad company lawyer cheated him out of his land with some fancy paperwork. When her daddy put a gun in his mouth over losing everything, Red decided the railroad and anybody carrying their money was fair game. She could ride like a Comanche, shoot like a Texas Ranger, and had more sand in her than most men twice her size. Virgil respected that, respected her. They all gathered at an abandoned line shack about 8 miles south of Copper Ridge, where the tracks ran through a narrow cut between 2 mesas. Perfect spot for what Cade had planned. I learned all this later, you understand, from trial testimonies, from newspaper accounts, from a drunk deputy who couldn't keep his mouth shut. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That Thursday night, the gang sat around a campfire that couldn't be seen from the tracks, going over the plan one last time. Cade sketched it out in the dirt with a stick. Train comes through at 2 p.m., give or take 15 minutes. She'll be moving slow through this cut, maybe 15 miles an hour account of the grade and the curve. That's when we hit her. Tom McCready spat tobacco juice into the fire. "How much powder we talking, Charlie?" Left-hand Charlie grinned, showing teeth gone tobacco brown. "Enough to make the angels cover their ears. We ain't just stopping this train, boys. We're putting her on her side." Red Sarah frowned. "You blow the whole train, you blow the gold to kingdom come." "No," Charlie said. "We're blowing the tracks 50 yards ahead of the engine. Driver sees the explosion, he slams the brakes. Train stops right where we want her, boxed in the cut with nowhere to run." Standing Wolf spoke then, his voice like gravel. "Guards. 6 soldiers in the payroll car, plus the engineer, fireman, and conductor. Maybe a few passengers in the coach car. We let them be. We ain't killers less we gotta be. The soldiers'll fight, they're duty-bound. So we hit 'em hard and fast. McCready take the engines. Charlie and Standing Wolf cover the gaps. Red and me go for the payroll car." James McCready laughed. "And when the army comes looking?" Cade smiled thin. "They won't find nothing but smoke and empty desert. Standing Wolf's got us a route through the Badlands. 3 different escape trails, depending on which way the wind blows. We split up, lay low for a month, then meet in Santa Fe to divvy the take. And if somebody talks," Cade's eyes went cold, "then somebody don't make it to Santa Fe." The fire crackled. Nobody said nothing for a spell. Finally, Red spoke up. 20,000 in gold. That's just over 3,000 per man." "Per person," Cade corrected, nodding to her. She smiled. "Per person. That's enough to disappear, start fresh somewhere. Or keep riding. I ain't the settling type." Cade stood, brushed dirt from his pants. "Every man, every person does what suits 'em after. But tomorrow we ride together, we trust each other, and we don't leave nobody behind. Understood?" They all nodded. What Cade didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the Army had changed their plans. See, there'd been some Apache troubles down south, and Fort Huachuca needed them reinforcements yesterday, so the Army decided to double the guard on that payroll train. Instead of 6 soldiers, there'd be 12, and riding in the locomotive with the engineer was a young lieutenant fresh from West Point named Howard Kittredge, who'd read every manual on military tactics ever written and was just itching to prove himself. And there was one more thing. The Army had hired themselves a Pinkerton detective to ride along, disguised as a passenger, a feller named Josiah Stern. Hard man, smart man, who'd busted up 3 train robberies already and was building himself quite the reputation. So when that train pulled out of Tucson Friday morning, it wasn't just carrying gold, it was carrying a powder keg waiting for a match. And Virgil Cade and his gang, they was about to strike that match. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let me tell you about Friday morning, when the devil's work truly began.
Friday morning broke hot and mean over the Arizona desert. The kind of heat that makes a man's shadow stick to the ground like tar. Virgil Cade was already awake before dawn. Couldn't sleep worth a damn. He stood outside that line shack watching the sun crawl up over the Dragoon Mountains, painting the sky the color of a fresh bruise, purple and angry red. Red Sarah came up beside him, still wearing her man's clothes, hat pulled low. "You nervous?" she asked. Cade didn't look at her. "Concerned. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Nervous means you ain't thought things through. Concerned means you have, and you know all the ways it can go wrong." She was quiet a moment. Then, "You ever think about quitting this life? Just stopping?" Now he did look at her. "Every damn day. But a man like me don't get to retire, Sarah. We ride till we can't ride no more. Then we hang or catch a bullet. That's the only endings we get." "That's bleak talk for a Friday morning." He almost smiled. "Just honest talk. After today, you take your share and you get out. Go to San Francisco, Chicago, hell, even Paris if you want. But you get far from this life before it eats you whole." "What about you?" "I'm already eaten," he said soft. "Ain't nothing left but bones and bad memories." Before she could respond, Charlie Left Hand came out grinning like a kid on Christmas. "Boys are up. Time to load the fireworks." At 11 a.m. they rode out to the spot Cade had picked, that narrow cut between 2 mesas where the tracks ran straight for maybe 300 yards before curving east toward Salvation. Standing Wolf had already scouted it twice that week. The approach was clean, plenty of rocks for cover, and the escape route wound through a maze of canyons that'd lose any posse inside an hour. Charlie set to work on the explosives while the others took positions. Now, I gotta explain something about dynamite in them days. It weren't like the stable stuff you hear about now. This was nitroglycerin sweated sticks that could go off if you looked at 'em cross-eyed. Charlie handled them sticks like they was newborn babies, sweating bullets the whole time. He planted 6 sticks under the rails about 50 yards up from where Cade wanted the train to stop, ran the fuse wire back to the rocks, and set up his plunger box. "How long's the fuse?" Charlie said. "Then 10 seconds from when I push this here handle down. Train comes around that bend, I blow the track, the driver sees the explosion and stops right in our kill box." "And if he don't stop?" James asked. Charlie shrugged. "Then we got us a real short train." They waited. High noon came and went. The sun beat down like a hammer on an anvil. Sweat ran down inside their shirts. Flies buzzed. A hawk circled overhead, probably smelling death before it even arrived. Red checked her rifle for the 5th time. The McCready brothers smoked cigarettes. Standing Wolf sat still as stone, eyes on the horizon. Cade just waited, patient as a rattlesnake. At 1:48 p.m. they heard it, that distant whistle, mournful and long, echoing through the canyons. "She's coming," Standing Wolf said. Every man, every person there felt their heart kick up. This was it, the moment all that planning turned into action, the moment where you find out if you're gonna be rich or dead. Cade pulled his bandana up over his face. Masks on, nobody shows their face. "Charlie, you see that engine clear the bend, you count 3 and blow it. Everybody else wait for my signal." They pulled up their masks, red and black bandanas like demons risen from hell itself. The train whistle blew again, closer now. Then they saw her, big Baldwin locomotive, black smoke pouring from her stack, pulling 3 cars, the coal tender, a passenger coach, and the armored payroll car at the rear. She came around that bend at maybe 20 miles per hour, faster than Cade had hoped. "Charlie," Cade shouted. "I see her." Charlie had his hand on the plunger, watching that engine like a hawk watching a rabbit. The locomotive cleared the bend. 1, 2, 3. Boom! That explosion was biblical. Them 6 sticks of dynamite tore them rails apart like a giant had reached down and twisted them into pretzels. Dust and smoke and bits of wood ties flew 50 feet in the air. The sound echoed off the mesa walls like thunder from an angry God. The engineer saw it. Lord, did he see it. He yanked that brake lever so hard it's a wonder he didn't tear it clean off. Sparks flew from the wheels as tons of screaming metal tried to stop on a dime. The train shuddered, squealed, and ground to a halt maybe 20 yards from the twisted wreckage of track. Perfect, right in Cade's kill box. "Now!" Cade shouted. The McCready brothers went for the engine, rifles up. Standing Wolf moved to cover the passenger car. Red and Cade headed for the payroll car at the rear. But then things started going sideways. See, that young lieutenant, Howard Kittredge, he'd been riding up in the locomotive with the engineer, and he'd read all them manuals about how to respond to an ambush. So instead of freezing up like most green officers would, he started barking orders like he'd been doing this for years. "Soldiers, defensive positions, protect the payroll car, return fire." And them 12 soldiers, they didn't hesitate. They came boiling out of that payroll car like hornets from a kicked nest, rifles already up and spitting lead. The first volley caught the gang by complete surprise. A bullet whined past Cade's head so close he felt the wind of it. Another spanged off the rock where Red had taken cover. Tom McCready yelped as a round tore through his coat sleeve. "Christ," James McCready shouted, "there's too damn many of them." He was right. Instead of 6 soldiers, they was facing 12, and every one of them was shooting to kill. Cade fired back, working his Winchester like a machine. "Stay on them, don't let them dig in." But the soldiers had good cover behind the train cars, and they was disciplined. They fired in volleys, half reloading while the other half kept the pressure. It was textbook military tactics, and it was working. Then Lieutenant Kittredge did something that proved he was either brave or stupid or both. He climbed up on top of that payroll car with a rifle and started picking targets. "Hostile on the left. Hostile behind the red rocks. Concentrate fire." His first shot hit Charlie left hand's plunger box, smashing it to pieces. "Damn it!" Charlie scrambled back as bullets chewed up the dirt around him. Red set the aim at the lieutenant, squeezed off a round that missed his head by inches. He ducked, came back up, fired again. His bullet hit the rock right in front of her face, sending chips of stone into her cheek. She cursed, touching the blood, then got mad.
See, Red Sarah had a temper when roused, and getting shot at by some West Point pretty boy was enough to rouse it fierce. She stood right up in the middle of a gunfight, aimed careful, and put a round right through the lieutenant's hat, knocking it clean off his head. He dropped like he'd been poleaxed, disappearing behind the car roof. "Did you get him?" Cade shouted. "Don't know, but he ain't shooting no more." That's when the Pinkerton made his move. Josiah Stern had been hiding in that passenger car, waiting for his moment. He was a patient man, a careful man. He'd watched the gang's positions, counted their numbers, noted their tactics, and when Red stood up to take that shot at the lieutenant, Stern saw his opportunity. He slipped out the far side of the passenger car, moved quick and quiet along the blind side of the train, and came up behind Standing Wolf's position. Standing Wolf never even heard him coming. "Drop it," Stern said, pressing his Colt against the Apache's spine. Standing Wolf froze. "I said drop it." The rifle fell from Standing Wolf's hands. "Now call out to your friends. Tell them to surrender or you die. And don't think I won't do it. I've killed better men than you for less." Standing Wolf's face was stone. "No." "What?" "I said no. You gonna kill me, but I ain't betraying my people." Stern's eyes narrowed. He respected that in a way, but respect don't stop a bullet. His finger tightened on the trigger. That's when Tom McCready, who'd circled
around wide to flank the engine, saw what was happening. He didn't have a clear shot at Stern without risking hitting Standing Wolf, so he did the only thing he could think of. He whistled, high and sharp. Stern's head snapped toward the sound. Standing Wolf moved like a rattlesnake strike, spun, grabbed Stern's gun hand, twisted hard. The Colt went off, the bullet going wild. The two men went down in a tangle of fists and fury. "We got trouble," Tom shouted. "There's a Pinkerton." Cade's mind raced. A Pinkerton meant this weren't no simple robbery no more. It meant the army had been expecting trouble. It meant this whole thing might be a setup. "Charlie," he shouted, "we need that car open now. The plunger's busted. I gotta do it by hand." "Then do it." Charlie pulled out another stick of dynamite, judged the distance to the payroll car, and made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his short life. He lit the fuse and threw it. Now, in his defense, Charlie Left Hand was the best demolitions man in 3 territories, but throwing dynamite ain't like throwing a rock. You got to account for the weight, the fuse length, the wind, and Charlie was rushed, under fire and scared. That stick of dynamite sailed through the air in a perfect arc and landed on the roof of the passenger car. "Oh, hell," Charlie whispered. Cade saw it. "No!" The explosion blew the roof clean off the passenger car. Wood and metal and glass flew everywhere. 3 passengers inside, a drummer from St. Louis, a rancher's wife heading to Tucson, and a retired school teacher. They didn't stand a chance. The sound of that blast seemed to freeze time itself. When the smoke cleared, Cade could see the devastation. The passenger car was a ruin, and even from where he stood, he could see the bodies. "Oh, God," Red whispered. "Charlie, what did you do?" Charlie's face had gone white as milk. I didn't mean..." There warn't no time for regrets. Lieutenant Kittredge, who hadn't been killed, just knocked loopy. He came back up on that roof and he was furious. "You murdered them," he screamed. "You murdered innocent people." And he started shooting like a man possessed. His bullets was coming fast and wild, driving the gang back into cover. The soldiers, seeing their lieutenant's rage, renewed their own fire with a vengeance. This weren't about protecting payroll no more. This was about vengeance for the dead. Cade knew right then they'd lost. You can rob a train, you can shoot it out with soldiers, but you kill innocent people, the whole territory is gonna hunt you to the ends of the earth. "We're pulling out," he shouted. "Everybody fall back." "What about the gold?" James McArady yelled. "Forget the damn gold. We leave now or we die here." But retreating under fire ain't easy. The soldiers was pressing hard, and Josiah Stern, who'd finally subdued Standing Wolf with a blow to the head, he was moving to cut off their escape route. Red Sarah laid down covering fire, her Winchester barking steady. "Go, I'll hold 'em." "Like hell," Cade said. "We leave together, remember?" That's when a bullet found Tom McArady, caught him high in the shoulder, spun him around. He went down hard, blood spreading across his shirt like spilled wine. "Tom!" James screamed. He ran to his brother, bullets kicking up dirt all around him. Cade made a decision. He ran out into the open, firing both his pistols, drawing the soldiers' attention away from the McArady brothers. It was the bravest damn fool thing I ever heard tell of. Bullets whined past him like angry bees. One caught his hat and sent it flying. Another tore through his coat, but he kept moving, kept shooting, giving James time to get Tom up and moving. Red came up beside him, her rifle empty, so she drew her pistol and added her fire to his. "You're crazy," she shouted over the gunfire. "Probably," he shouted back, grinning like a madman. They fell back together, step by step, while Charlie and the McArady brothers made for the horses. Standing Wolf was still down, unconscious or dead, they couldn't tell. "We can't leave him," Red said. "We got no choice," Cade said. "He'd understand." But as they reached the rocks where they tied the horses, Cade saw something that made his blood run cold. Lieutenant Kittredge had climbed down from the train. He'd rallied half the soldiers, and they was moving to flank the gang's position. If they reached those horses first, the gang would be trapped on foot in the desert. They'd die of thirst before they got 10 miles. "Charlie," Cade shouted, "you got any powder left?" Charlie, still pale and shaky from killing them innocent folks, nodded. "2 sticks. Light 'em both and throw 'em at them soldiers. Buy us 30 seconds. Charlie's hand shook as he pulled out the dynamite. He looked at Cade. "I killed them people. I ain't no better than a murderer. You made a mistake in the heat of battle, but you don't make it right by dying here. You survive. You live with it. That's your punishment and your penance. Now light them fuses." Charlie nodded, tears running down his face. He lit both sticks, stood up, and threw 'em with all his might. His aim was true this time. Both sticks landed right in the path of the flanking soldiers. The men saw them sizzling sticks and scattered like quail. The explosion sent rocks and dust flying, created a wall of smoke and confusion. "Now!" Cade shouted. "Ride!" They hit them saddles at a dead run, spurring their horses into a gallop. Tom McArady was barely hanging on, bleeding bad. James held him in the saddle with one arm while he rode with the other. Behind him, the soldiers regrouped and started firing again, but the gang was moving fast, weaving through the rocks, and the range was getting long. They rode hard for the canyons, following the escape route Standing Wolf had chosen, and that Apache had chosen well. The trail twisted and turned through narrow narrows where no posse could follow in force. After an hour of hard riding, Cade finally called a halt in a box canyon with a spring. They dismounted, gasping for breath. The horses was lathered white with sweat. Tom McArady slid from his saddle and collapsed. James caught him, lowered him gentle to the ground. "How bad?" Cade asked. James peeled back Tom's shirt. The bullet had gone clean through, which was good, but he'd lost a lot of blood. "He needs a doctor," Red said. Nearest doctor's in Tucson. That's 40 miles and crawling with soldiers by now. Tom opened his eyes, managed a weak grin. I guess I ain't gonna make it to Santa Fe. Don't talk like that, James said. We failed, Charlie said, staring at his hands. We failed and I killed innocent people. And Standing Wolf's captured or dead and Tom's dying and we got nothing, nothing. Cade looked at his gang, what was left of it. 4 people, 1 dying, all of them hunted, with nothing to show for it but blood and shame. He'd planned for soldiers, he'd planned for obstacles, but he hadn't planned for the human cost, the weight of them dead passengers, the loss of Standing Wolf, the look in Charlie's eyes that said his soul had broke. We rest here 1 hour, Cade said quiet. Then we split up. Charlie, you head west to California, change your name, disappear. James, you take Tom south to Mexico. Find a doctor who don't ask questions. Pay him whatever it takes. Red and me, we'll go north, draw any pursuit away from you. And then what? Red asked. Cade looked at the blood on his hands. Then we live with what we done, for however long they let us. The sun was sinking toward the western horizon, painting the canyon walls the color of old blood. Somewhere behind them, a posse was forming. Lieutenant Kittredge was swearing vengeance. Josiah Stern was interrogating Standing Wolf, and the newspapers was already writing the headlines. Train massacre at Copper Ridge, 3 innocent dead. The age of the gentleman outlaw was over. After today, they was just murderers running from the rope. And the worst part, they didn't even get the gold.
That evening, while Cade's gang licked their wounds in the canyon, the town of Salvation was buzzing like a kicked hornet's nest. The train had limped back into town, carrying the bodies of them 3 passengers and the story of the massacre. Lieutenant Kittredge had sent riders out in all directions, and within hours, every lawman, soldier, and bounty hunter in the territory knew about the Copper Ridge job. The Army put up a $5,000 reward, dead or alive. The railroad added another $3,000, and the families of the dead passengers, they pooled together $2,000 more. $10,000 for Virgil Cade and his gang. That's more money than most men would see in a lifetime. Enough to turn friends into enemies. Enough to make every saddle tramp and desperate man in Arizona into a hunter. But there was one hunter who didn't care about the money. Josiah Stern, the Pinkerton detective. He took it personal. See, one of them dead passengers, that retired school teacher, she'd been his aunt. The woman who raised him after his own mama died. The woman who taught him to read, who believed in him when nobody else did. And now she was dead because of Virgil Cade's gang. Stern had Standing Wolf locked up in the Salvation jailhouse, and he was working on him hard. But that Apache, he weren't talking, not one word. They could beat him, starve him, promise him clemency, didn't matter. Standing Wolf had made his choice to ride with Cade, and he'd face the consequences without betraying nobody. I admired that, even if it was misplaced loyalty. But Stern was a patient man. He knew Standing Wolf would eventually make a mistake, give up something useful, so he waited. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Kittredge was organizing a proper military pursuit. 30 cavalry soldiers, the best trackers the Army had, supplies for 2 weeks in the field. They was gonna run Cade's gang to ground if it took till Christmas. But they had a problem. That box canyon where the gang had holed up, it opened into a maze of passages that split off in a dozen different directions. Without Standing Wolf to guide them, they didn't know which trail to follow. So the posse split up, each group taking a different canyon, hoping to pick up sign.
It was like looking for a particular grain of sand on a beach. Back in that box canyon, Tom McAreddy was fading fast. The bullet wound had stopped bleeding, but infection was setting in. His skin was hot to the touch, his breathing shallow. He kept drifting in and out of consciousness, muttering about their mama back in Kansas, about green fields and cool rain. James sat with him, holding his hand, tears running down his face. "We gotta move," Cade said gentle. "Every hour we stay here, that posse gets closer." "He can't ride," James said. "Moving him will kill him. Staying here will kill all of us." Red Sarah knelt beside Tom, felt his forehead. She looked up at Cade and shook her head slightly. The message was clear. Tom weren't gonna make it either way. "Then I'm staying with him," James said. "You three go on. I'll hold here till it's done. Then I'll catch up or I won't." "James," Cade started. "Don't," James cut him off. "He's my brother, my blood. I ain't leaving him to die alone in some God-forsaken canyon while I run like a coward. This is where I make my stand." Cade understood. Hell, he respected it. A man's got a right to choose how his story ends. "We'll leave you water, ammunition, and a horse. If Tom passes, you bury him proper. Say words over him. Then you ride to Mexico and you don't look back." James nodded, couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Charlie Left Hand hadn't said a word since they'd stopped. He just sat against a rock, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. The weight of them dead passengers was crushing him. Red walked over, sat down beside him. "Charlie," she said soft. He didn't look at her. "Charlie, look at me." Slowly, he turned his head. His eyes were dead, hollow. "What you done was an accident, a terrible accident, but an accident all the same. You didn't mean to kill them people." "Don't matter what I meant, they're just as dead. That woman, that drummer, that rancher's wife, they woke up yesterday morning not knowing it was their last day on earth, and I'm the one who ended it for them. So what you gonna do? Sit here and die? Let the guilt eat you alive? Maybe, maybe not. But I'll tell you what, dying don't bring them back, don't make it right. You want to make it right, then you live, you survive this, and you spend the rest of your days doing good in the world to balance the scales. You help people, you save lives, you become the opposite of what you was for 5 minutes on that terrible Friday." Charlie looked at her, really looked at her, saw the hope in her eyes, the desperate belief that maybe somehow there was still a way out of this life that didn't end with a bullet or a rope. But first they had to survive. "The sun's going down," he said. "We move in 1 hour. Charlie, you head west like we discussed. Find a town, become someone new. Red and me will head north, make some noise, draw the pursuit. With luck, they'll chase us and leave you be." "Why you doing this for me?" Charlie asked, "after what I done?" "Because you're one of us," Cade said simple, "and we don't leave our people behind if we can help it." They spent the next hour preparing, dividing supplies, checking weapons, saying goodbyes that might be final. When it came time to go, James McAreddy shook each of them's hands. "You was good people to ride with," he said. "I'm sorry it ended like this." "Me too," Cade said. Red kissed James on the cheek. "You take care of him, you hear? And yourself." Charlie couldn't meet James's eyes. "I'm sorry for all of it." James surprised him by pulling him into a rough hug. "We all knew the risks, Charlie. What happened ain't all on you." Then they mounted up and rode out, leaving James McAreddy alone with his dying brother in a canyon that would become their grave. Cade and Red rode north through the night, following dry washes and rocky ground that wouldn't show tracks. They didn't talk much, just focused on putting miles between them and the posse. Around midnight, they stopped to rest the horses. "You think Charlie'll make it?" Red asked. "If he wants to," Cade said. "That's the question. Does he want to? And us? You think we'll make it?" Cade looked at her in the moonlight, even covered in trail dust, exhausted and scared. She was beautiful, strong, alive in a way most people never are. "Honestly, no," Cade said. "I think they'll catch us sooner or later. There's too many of them, and we're too well known. Our faces are probably already on wanted posters from here to Colorado." "Then why run?" she asked. "Because running beats hanging, and because—" He paused, searching for words. "Maybe in the time we got left, we can do something that matters, something good." "Like what?" "I don't know yet, but I'm open to suggestions." She smiled despite everything. "You're a strange man, Virgil Cade. I've been called worse." They rode on. 3 days later, they were hiding in an abandoned prospector's cabin up in the Chiricahua Mountains when they heard the horses. A lot of horses. Cade peered through a crack in the wall. In the canyon below, he could see Lieutenant Kittredge and about 20 soldiers moving systematic-like, searching every gulch and hidey hole. "How'd they find us?" Red whispered. "Luck or skill, don't matter which. We got maybe 10 minutes before they search this cabin. We could fight. 2 against 20? That's not a fight, that's suicide." "Then what?" Cade thought fast. The cabin was built into the hillside with a back door that opened onto a steep slope. If they could get to the horses, they might get slip away while the soldiers searched the cabin. "We go out the back, quiet as ghosts, get to the horses and ride hard for the North Ridge. There's a trail there only goats and crazy people use. We take that, we might lose them." "Might?" "It's the best I got." They gathered their gear, moved to the back door. Cade eased it open, wincing at every creak and groan of the old hinges. The horses were 20 yards away, tied in a thicket. They almost made it. They was maybe 10 feet from the horses when a voice rang out. "Hold it right there!" Lieutenant Kittredge stepped out from behind a rock,
his pistol drawn. Behind him, soldiers emerged from cover, rifles pointed. They'd been waiting, knowing the outlaws would try to slip out the back. "It's over, Cade," Kittredge said. "Drop your weapons." Cade's hand hovered over his gun. He could draw, maybe take Kittredge, but the soldiers would cut him down before he got a second shot, and Red would die too. "Don't," Red said quietly, reading his thoughts. "Don't throw your life away." "I ain't going to the gallows," Cade said. "Maybe you won't have to. Surrender. Live to fight another day." "There ain't gonna be another day." "You don't know that." Kittredge was getting impatient. "I won't ask again. Weapons down, hands up." Cade looked at Red, really looked at her, saw the hope in her eyes, the desperate belief that maybe, somehow, there was still a way through this. And he made a choice. He dropped his gun belt. Red did the same. "Wise decision," Kittredge said. He nodded to his soldiers. "Secure 'em." Rough hands grabbed them, tied their wrists behind their backs. One soldier searched Cade, found the picture he carried, a faded daguerreotype of a woman and a little girl. "Who's this?" the soldier asked. "Nobody," Cade said. "Just ghosts." But they wouldn't nobody. They was his wife and daughter, killed in a Union raid back in '63. The reason he'd joined Quantrill, the reason he'd been riding this dark road for 30 years. Kittredge examined the picture, then handed it back to Cade. put it in his pocket, he told the soldier. Some small mercy. They was marched down the mountain, hands bound, toward a wagon that would take 'em to Tucson for trial. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution had Standing Wolf's testimony. He'd finally broke when they told him Cade had been captured. Figured there weren't no point in protecting a man who was gonna hang anyway. He told him everything. The plan, the execution, who did what. Charlie Left Hand had been caught in New Mexico territory, brought back in chains. He'd confessed to throwing the dynamite, trying to take all the blame himself. Didn't matter. They all was gonna hang. James McReady was still missing. Tom had died, and James had buried him like Cade told him to, but instead of running to Mexico, he'd vanished into the Arizona desert like smoke. Some say he died out there. Some say he made it to California and lived quiet under another name. Nobody knows for certain. The verdict came quick. Guilty on all counts. Murder, attempted robbery, destruction of government property. The judge, an old man named Blackthorn who'd been hanging outlaws since before the war, he pronounced sentence without hesitation. You will be taken from this place to the Tucson Territorial Prison, where you will be held until Friday next, which time you will be hanged by the neck until dead. May God have mercy on your souls, for this court has none. Standing Wolf accepted it without expression. Charlie wept. Red Sarah looked scared for the first time since Cade had known her. And Cade, he just nodded. He'd known this was coming since the moment he chose this life. But the story don't end in that courtroom. The night before the hanging, Red Sarah had gotten a visitor too, a lawyer from Tucson, name of Abraham Kendrick, and he'd told her something interesting. Turned out them 3 passengers who died, they hadn't actually been killed by the explosion. Oh, the explosion tore up that car something fierce, no question. But when the doctor examined the bodies, they found bullet wounds, rifle rounds fired from outside the train. In the confusion and chaos of the battle, the soldiers had been shooting wild, and some of their bullets went right through the walls of that passenger car and struck the people inside. The explosion had made it look worse than it was, covered up the bullet wounds, and in the rush to blame the outlaws, nobody had looked too close. Charlie Left Hand's dynamite hadn't killed nobody. The army had. But by the time lawyer Kendrick uncovered this evidence, the trial was over, the sentence passed, and when he tried to bring it to the judge, to the territorial governor, he got stonewalled. See, the army didn't want the truth to come out. Would make 'em look bad shooting civilians. Better to let the outlaws take the blame. Cleaner that way. So 4 people died on them gallows for something they didn't do. Well, not entirely. They was still guilty of attempted robbery, of shooting at soldiers, of blowing up railroad property. They wasn't innocent, but they wasn't murderers neither. Lawyer Kendrick spent the next 5 years fighting to clear their names, filed appeals, wrote to newspapers, made himself a general nuisance to the authorities. And finally, in 1897, the territorial governor issued a posthumous pardon, said the 4 had been wrongly convicted of murder, though they were still guilty of the robbery attempt. Small comfort to the dead, I suppose. But it meant something to the families, to the people who remembered Virgil Cade not as a monster, but as a man broke by war and loss who made bad choices. As for James McReady, he did surface eventually. Turned out he'd made it to San Francisco, changed his name to James Morrison, and opened a haberdashery. Lived quiet for 40 years, died in his sleep at age 72. Nobody ever connected him to the Copper Ridge job. The gold, that $20,000,
It made it to Fort Huachuca safe and sound. The soldiers spent it on supplies and whiskey and sent most of it home to their families. And that train line through Copper Ridge, it ran for another 60 years before the railroad company shut it down. But folks around here still call that spot Dynamite Canyon, and if you go there on a quiet night, they say you can still hear the echo of that explosion and the ghosts of 4 outlaws paying for sins, both real and imagined.
Well, now, that's all she wrote on this particular tale. If you enjoyed this story, go ahead and smash that like button. Helps this old codger know he ain't just talking to himself. And subscribe to hear more stories from the Old West. I got tales about gunslingers and gold miners, cattle drives and Indian wars, love and loss and everything in between. And like I said at the start, if you got a story you want told, drop it in the comments. Some particular outlaw or event or piece of history you want to hear about. I'll tell your story. That's a promise. The Old West is gone now, turned to dust and faded photographs. But as long as there's folks willing to listen, them stories will live on. And that's something worth preserving, I reckon.